Good day. This is Dimitri Lascaris coming to you from Kalamata, Greece for Reason to Resist on May 26, 2026. Yesterday, during a Reason to Resist live stream, I argued yet again that the Trump regime's negotiations with Iran are an elaborate charade. I explained the reasons for my belief that Trump is negotiating in bad faith and that this entire spectacle is designed to manipulate oil and stock markets and also to convince American voters who are overwhelmingly opposed to this catastrophic and criminal war that Trump is giving peace the old college try and is really serious about trying to bring this to an end. Ultimately, when they fail these negotiations because of Trump's efforts to undermine them, he will try to convince Americans that the Iranians or others are to blame for the calamity. Well, last night, within a few hours of me making this argument yet again, the US military attacked Iranian naval vessels in Iran's territorial waters without any evidence or even allegation that the Iranian military fired on the US military. The reports are, although they are not confirmed, that the attacks killed 4 Iranian military personnel and also 2 fishermen. It is also clear that the US military bombed certain land-based facilities in the south of Iran, including the key port city of Bandar Abbas. They did all of this, I stress, during a so-called ceasefire. What more proof do we need that Trump is negotiating in bad faith and that these negotiations are nothing but a really crappy Hollywood movie? In the first half of this episode, I'll explain what happened last night and discuss the aftermath of Trump's latest aggression against Iran. And in the second half of this report, I'll speak to 2 participants in the most recent attempt by humanitarians to break Israel's criminal blockade of Gaza. One of them, a citizen of France, was shot by an Israeli soldier while in captivity. The other, a citizen of Canada, was stabbed and beaten by Israeli terrorists while in captivity. Now, before we get into it, please remember to like and share this video if you find it to be informative. And if you're not already a subscriber of Reason to Resist, please do become one. Help us to expand the reach of our unapologetic resistance journalism. And also, you can help us to expand our on-the-ground reporting from conflict zones by purchasing Reason to Resist merchandise. And there's a link in the description of this video which will indicate to you how you can do that. With that, let's get into it. So last night, US CENTCOM, the segment of the US military that has jurisdiction over West Asia, announced that it had launched attacks against Iranian targets, and it described those attacks as self-defense. The statement is as follows: US forces conducted self-defense strikes in southern Iran today to protect our troops from threats posed by Iranian forces. Notice there's no allegation that Iranian forces actually fired on US forces. There's simply a claim that those troops in the Iranian forces in some unspecified way pose threats to US forces. And bear in mind that we're talking here about Iran's territorial waters and a part of the world that is very, very far away from America's shores. The US CENTCOM went on to say that targets included missile launch sites and Iranian boats attempting to emplace mines. There is not an iota of evidence produced by the US military right up until this moment, to my knowledge, that those vessels were laying mines. And it then says US Central Command continues to defend our forces while using restraint during the ongoing ceasefire. How can you say that an unprovoked attack constitutes restraint during a ceasefire? And I want to stress that if the US military had evidence that it was attacked, if it had evidence that these naval vessels were laying mines that posed a threat to US naval vessels, it would produce it. Why wouldn't it do so? It would be only too happy to show the world that its statements are true, but it hasn't put out anything that could qualify as evidence because it has none. Now, the Iranian Foreign Ministry subsequently confirmed that the US military had violated the ceasefire. This is a translation of the Farsi language statement issued by Iran's foreign ministry, helpfully provided by the Cradle. And it says, the terrorist army of America, in continuation of its illegal and irresponsible actions, since the announcement of the ceasefire, especially through repeated acts of maritime piracy against Iranian commercial vessels and ships. And yes, the US blockade on Iranian ports is also an act of war and a violation of the ceasefire. The MFA says that it violated the US military, the ceasefire, again in the Hormozgan region over the past 48 hours. The commission of these aggressive actions, simultaneous with the ongoing diplomatic process through Pakistani mediation, once again demonstrated the bad faith and unreliability of the ruling body of America for the Iranian nation, the peoples of the region, and the global community, and showed that the principled approach of the Iranian nation in all three arenas of the battlefield, the street, and diplomacy is based on deep mistrust toward the American regime and an accurate understanding of its deceitful and criminal nature. The ministry strongly condemns these aggressive actions, which constitute a clear violation of paragraph 4 of Article 2 of the United Nations Charter. That's true. This is an act of aggression because there's not even an allegation, let alone proof, that these naval vessels that were struck by the American military were attacking or were about to attack U.S. Vessels. And I repeat, they appear to have been in Iran's own territorial waters. And the ministry says at the conclusion of its statement that it will hold the American regime responsible for all consequences resulting from these aggressive actions. Without doubt, the Islamic Republic of Iran will leave no aggression unanswered and will allow no hesitation in defending the lives of Iranians. And that, I think, in diplomatic speak, is a threat of retaliation. Now, in Iran, the news website Tabnak, believed to be close to a former Revolutionary Guard commander, identified 4 dead Guard troops it said had been killed in American strikes on Iranian naval boats. I've seen no official confirmation, however, from the Iranian government that Iranian military personnel were killed. The website Tabnak also claimed that 2 fishermen were killed and published their photos. Again, I've not seen an official confirmation from the Iranian government of their deaths. But it wouldn't surprise me at all if the Americans had killed fishermen. They have been slaughtering civilians in the Gulf of Mexico and Caribbean waters for months with total impunity. Separately, Iranian state television reported blasts around the key Strait of Hormuz port of Bandar Abbas, which I visited in March of this year during the hot phase of the war. The Iranian state news agency Mehr later said the situation was, quote, completely under control, close quote, and there was no reason for residents to worry. Iranian news agency Fars reported that Iran's military had shot down yet another U.S. MQ-9 Reaper drone, and that it had chased away, fired upon U.S. F-35. This is the Fars article that was published today. It states the IRGC announced Tuesday today that the country's armed forces shot down a U.S. MQ-9 drone, adding that an RQ-4 drone and an F-35 military aircraft also entered Iranian airspace before retreating. By the way, this also, the entry of these lethal weapons into Iranian airspace would be a violation of the ceasefire and an act of aggression. The IRGC said it has shot down the MQ-9 Reaper drone after identifying hostile aircraft. It said, quote, it also fired upon an RQ-4 drone and an intruding F-35 fighter jet without specifying when and where the incidents took place. Iranian army spokesman Mohammad Akraminiya has recently stated that more than 170 drones, including long-endurance MQ-9 Reaper drones, and 16 military aircraft were shot down by the Iranian army defense units. This, by the way, has been essentially confirmed by Western corporate media. So the American Air Force continues to sustain significant and expensive losses of materiel because of its ongoing aggression against the Islamic Republic. One thing one wonders is where are these? Where's this drone and this F-35 coming from? Are they launched from an aircraft carrier hundreds of kilometers away? Because there's none in the immediate vicinity of Iran. That would be too close. If it was in or near Iran's territorial waters, the aircraft carrier would be liable to be sunk by the Iranian military. If it is coming from an aircraft carrier, it is coming from probably a distance of at least a couple of 100 kilometers. The aircraft carriers have been operating from a distance in excess of 200 kilometers to try to avoid Iranian missile and drone fire. Or the other possibility is that they are coming from Israel, and the F-35 would have to be refueled in that case over somebody's airspace, either Iraq's or Saudi Arabia's. And the other possibility is they're coming from a base closer to the Persian Gulf, perhaps in Saudi Arabia, perhaps in Kuwait. Who knows? What I think should merit inquiry is whether any of the Gulf autocracies are helping the United States, continuing to help the United States to engage in these acts of aggression. Now, all of this happened while Iran's foreign minister Abbas Araghchi and its lead negotiator, Iranian parliament speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, were in Qatar to try to advance peace talks. They were there reportedly to discuss the unfreezing of Iranian assets. $12 billion in Iranian assets, $12 billion are reportedly frozen in Qatari financial institutions. The fact that the U.S. Carried out this latest aggression while these meetings were happening in Qatar raises a serious question about whether the criminal Trump regime was trying to sabotage the discussions between the Iranian officials and Qatari officials. The foreign minister and the speaker of parliament have now returned to Iran. Now, if all of this wasn't bad enough, the terrorist Israeli military announced that it is expanding its genocidal campaign in Lebanon. Israeli forces have begun operating beyond its so-called Yellow Line in South Lebanon, which runs around 10 kilometers deep inside Lebanese territory, 10 kilometers from the border of occupied Palestine. This is coming from a military official who spoke to Agence France-Presse. Quote, the IDF is operating in a targeted manner beyond the forward defense line in order to remove direct threats to the citizens of the state of Israel and IDF troops in accordance with the directives of the political echelon. The forward defense line is on Lebanese territory, and it's quite clear that everything south of that line is being systematically demolished, and that Israel is trying to render it unlivable with the eventual goal of annexing that territory. Now, if Trump was serious about ending the war on Iran, he would stop Israel from carrying out its attacks on Lebanon's civilian infrastructure and civilian population, which have intensified with the expansion of this criminal offensive. Instead, he's arming Israel as it expands its attacks on Lebanon's civilian infrastructure and civilian population. This, too, shows that the treacherous war criminal in the White House has no real interest in ending the war of aggression on Iran. Today, predictably, the price of Brent crude shot back up after falling by 6% to below $100 a barrel yesterday. And I'm showing you here an excerpt from an article published by The Guardian a few hours ago. The title of the ominous title, I should say, of the article is, quote, oil price rises back above $100 a barrel as energy market may be past point of no return. And you can see here that the Guardian reports that market observers say weeks of disruption to oil exports have heavily eroded global stockpiles of crude and fuel, while demand for transport fuels is expected to increase over the summer travel season. By the way, we appear to be heading into some nasty heat waves, one in Western Europe taking place, that did take place today. It's not clear how long it's going to last. India is also being enveloped in punishing heat. And, in order to survive those conditions, the population needs to consume more energy to stay cool, particularly air conditioning. So that too may cause a spike in energy demand in the next couple of months at a time when many countries around the world simply cannot afford an increase in energy demand. And the article goes on to say that analysts at HFI Research said last week that the market had, quote, reached the point of no return and could be due to a rude awakening by the start of next month. That would be June. Quote, it just seems to be this endless loop of Charlie Brown and Lucy with the football. said Michael Every, a global strategist for economics and markets at the Dutch lender Rabobank. Every single time it's, oh, this time is the breakthrough. This time the energy will flow. And at any one given time, it could be right. But so far, repeatedly, it hasn't been. Now, I hasten to point out here that this so-called market expert, all he had to do was watch Reason to Resist, back when this criminal war of aggression began. And we would have told you that that the United States government was not going to make any serious effort to end its criminal war of aggression on Iran, and it was going to engage in this kabuki theater. We've been making this argument repeatedly for months. In fact, we were making this argument about Trump in Ukraine, about the so-called Gaza peace plan, which has turned out, as we predicted, to be a complete farce and just a cover for the ongoing genocide against the Palestinian people. Same thing in Lebanon. The U.S. government, Mr. Every, does not want peace. It only pretends to want peace to manipulate markets and people like you, in fact, oil traders and so-called market experts like you, and to deceive Americans into thinking that it doesn't want endless wars. Now, the article goes on, says the head of the International Energy Agency, Fatih Birol, said last week that the world could hit a red zone in July and August by using far more oil than countries were producing. Yet on Monday, oil fell below $100 a barrel, reaching a one-month low of $95.95 as traders responded to weekend reports that a deal to end the war was close. How gullible these traders are. That same day, Saudi Aramco, the state-controlled oil firm, predicted that if the Strait of Hormuz remained closed for further weeks, oil supply challenges would affect the market until next year. The shutdown of the channel, which, talking here about the Strait of Hormuz, which allowed for the transport of about 20 million barrels of oil a day before the crisis, has cut 14.4 million barrels of oil a day from the Gulf's pre-war output. Record draws from an emergency oil stockpiles have helped to plug this shortfall by about 2 million barrels a day, but these releases are expected to end by July, and inventories are already critically low, according to the U.S. investment bank JP Morgan. And in fact, the price of oil rose back above $100 a barrel today, after falling about 6% yesterday. I'm talking here about the price of a barrel of Brent crude. Interestingly, the Wall Street Journal reported today that the farcical Project Freedom, which lasted, I think, for less than 24 hours, this was the much ballyhooed mission of the U.S. Navy that Donald Trump ordered for it to escort commercial vessels through the Strait of Hormuz and secure the unimpeded access of vessels through the strait, that it was about to be relaunched. That's what the Wall Street Journal reported, citing unnamed officials. And CENTCOM then put out this denial, saying that recent media reporting claims that the U.S. Navy has restarted escorting or assisting commercial vessels during transits through the Strait of Hormuz. False. Project Freedom has not resumed, and so forth. It would be quite surprising if it did, because a U.S. admiral recently admitted in testimony before Congress that there is no way for the U.S. Navy to escort vessels through the Strait of Hormuz with a reasonable level of safety in a contested environment. He, in essence, admitted that any effort to force open the Strait of Hormuz would end in disaster for the United States military. Now, with that, let's turn to our guests, both of whom recently left occupied Palestine after Israel's genocide forces kidnapped them in international waters in the last few days. Along with hundreds of other persons of conscience, they were part of the Flotilla to Gaza, a peaceful mission to break Israel's genocidal blockade on the Gaza concentration camp. The first participant we spoke with is Mathilda Mallet. She's a citizen of France and served as the co-pilot for a civilian vessel called the Kyriakos X, which I understand departed from Greece for Gaza. And when I spoke with Mathilda, she was in a hospital in Istanbul receiving treatment for a gunshot wound. She was shot by an Israeli soldier while she was in captivity on an Israeli prison boat, which was transporting her from the site from which she was kidnapped on the Kyriakos to occupied Palestine. And here is what Mathilda had to say.
We saw the rips coming very fast to our boat. We put the speed very fast too because we wanted to maybe try to go away. Then it was two rips, one of each side of the boat, and they start to put the guns on us, and they just made the sign to go down. So everybody go down on the ground of the boat. Then they shot on the boat to just break the Starlink and camera stuff. I don't know. They just jump aboard, and they are with the guns on every people on board, and they are screaming on everybody and asking who is the captain. So nobody answered. Then they start to give some electric taser guns to some people and to tie the hands really tight to other people's, and they were just screaming and asking who is able to drive the boat. Nobody still not answer. Then they keep going to torture some people on board, and at the end I just asked them what they want that I do with the boat. So they asked me to put the boat on a certain heading and a certain speed, and I execute myself. So that was the interception time.
Mm-hmm. So you were the person who was piloting the boat?
Yeah, we were two people, and I was one of this person, one of the two skippers.
Okay, so what happened next after you started to drive the vessel in the direction they told you to go? What happened next?
Next, the one of the passenger, Baki, who have the hands really tight and they start to get violet, ask me secretly if I can ask them to untight the hand. So I was just begging them just to untight Baki hands, and more I was asking, more they were playing with the fact that he was suffering. I was looking at them along the time, and they were just screaming on me, putting the gun on me and asking me to look down. Then they tied the hand of everybody on board, and they bring us one by one at the front of the boat to look in our pockets and to see everywhere on our body. So you are on the belly at the front of the boat, and they are just looking everywhere on you, what you have in your pocket and stuff. So this is the second steps. Then I was asking them if we can just take one bag or our personal stuff inside of the boat. They never accept. I asked almost for 15 times if we can just take our bags inside, and they refuse every time. And then they just throw us on the rib and to go on the way of the warship.
I'm sorry. So you were taken off of the boat onto a warship. Is that what happened?
Yeah, exactly. With
Okay.
still all the ends with the ends tight.
Right. And so please describe to us what happened on the warship.
It was, so when you jump on the warship, it's like if you enter in a new galaxy. There is, I don't know how many hundred IOF soldiers in front of you. They are putting you in a line and bringing you to, there is a kind of office, and they're bringing you here. You have to just leave them your passport. Then they are putting you one by one on the ground, and they are asking you to take off your clothes. So yeah, they do that. They take off everything that you have on you, and they are just throwing you in a space. I was alone, just with one person at the beginning, and then they came back to take me, and they bring me in a bigger place with more people.
Sorry, so you were stripped naked?
Can you repeat, please?
Did they make you take all of your clothes off so that you were naked, or were you permitted to keep anything on your body?
Not at this time. This time they just put they just letting you with a small T-shirt and a small pants that I had on me. They just leaving you with the minimum clothes that they can leave you to make yourself get cold. Yes.
And then they put you into a larger area of the boat. Did they cram you all into one space on that boat, or were you separated?
Yeah. So it's. So at the beginning, I was alone in a space. Then they came back, they took me and they bring me in a larger space. We count it's about 20 meters by 6 meters big. And we were at the beginning, we were not too many. And a lot of people keep entering inside by a little door. And at the end, we were about 180 people in this area. You have like 3 containers on the sides of this area, and so everybody was refuging in the container, because when you are in the area outside, it's a bit down, and they are upstairs on a kind of platform, many soldiers, and they are just putting the guns on you and looking at you. So you are downstairs and they are up of you, taking a lot of picture videos and just putting the laser of the gun on you.
So you were sorry, what was the size of that space again?
It was 20 meters by 6 meters. 20 meters long by 6 meters large.
So you were in there with 180 people, you said?
Yes.
And how long were you in that space with 180 people?
How long? We stayed here for a little bit more than 2 days, 48 hours.
You were in that space with 180 people for 2 days?
For 2 days in that space on the boat, and we didn't know where we're going to. Yeah, and if you want, I can tell you my personal story. That's just after 5 hours being in this space. I was just sleeping in one of the containers because everybody was exhausting, and just then when I wake up, I just went outside in the area to go to the toilet, because you have just like 6 toilets outside, and there is a little door that they are putting people inside. They are making people arriving, the new kidnapped people. And on the ground, you have like a black area made with tape. And you're not supposed to go in this area. And me, I was not in this place. I was not front of the door. I was just like few meters behind, walking around just to walk a little bit. And there is this soldier from the top who say to me to move away, and I didn't have time to move away. They just shot on me. At the beginning, I didn't felt no hurt. I just felt the noise, and like I kind of running with my hand on my leg, and when I look at my hand, it was full of blood. So then there is a Malaysian doctor. She just opened my pants with her teeth, and we saw that I have a big hole, bleeding in my leg. So at this moment, everybody screamed that we need urgently a doctor, because it was really close to the femoral artery.
Femoral artery.
Yeah, artery. Yeah.
So you were shot in the leg by an Israeli soldier while you were standing on this in this area, and you were obviously not armed. You didn't have any weapons, and he just shot you.
But yeah, and
You're right.
Nobody understood what happened, because I was just here and without doing nothing, and they just shot on me like free, absolutely for free. Yes.
And so you are now in a hospital in Istanbul, I understand, where you've been treated for your gunshot wound. Is that correct?
Exactly. It's 3 days here because my the hole that I have in the leg starts to be infected because they didn't took care of me in the boat. Then when the shot happened, they took me and they bring me in a kind of nursery. It's not a nursery; it's just a container with a piece of wood, and you are sitting on this. I was really cold, but they didn't give me nothing to warm myself. And there is two Israeli doctors who take care of me for. They kept me for more than 12 hours, and they gave me some antibiotics and stuff.
Uh-huh.
I
As far
think
as you know,
they were.
as far as you know, was the Israeli soldier who shot you punished or reprimanded by
Yes.
his commanding officer?
Oh, yes. 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 So me, I didn't saw the scene, but people around me saw that when I get shot, there is another soldier run on this guy who shot me, and start to scream on him because I think it was not the plan for them to shot on people at the beginning, because there is also another warship when people get really tortured, worse than on ours. So I was on the boat, let's say, kind. So I don't know who giving order, but yeah, they panic, and when they saw that I have a big hurt on my leg, I think they were a bit. It was not the plan for them. I realized it when I was in the kind of nursery. They were a little bit panicked, and everybody came to see how I was because I think, something, it was not in the plan for them.
Okay, so after you spent 2 days on that boat, what happened next? Did you then arrive in Israel?
So after spending 2 days on the boat, we in the morning early, there is someone came upstairs and screamed on a big speaker, "Good morning, welcome in Israel." So that's the way we realized that we were just arriving in Israel, and and then
Unfortunately, our interview with Mathilda ended there. We lost our connection to her in the hospital in Istanbul, and we were not able to reestablish the connection before recording today's report. The second flotilla passenger we spoke with is Ehab Lotayef. He is a Canadian citizen who is based in Montreal, where I happen to be based, and he was a passenger on a Canadian sponsored vessel called the Perseverance. I've known Ehab for years, and in fact, Reason to Resist interviewed him while he was on the Perseverance and was heading to Gaza from Italy. Here's the discussion we had earlier today with Ehab, who has now returned home to Montreal and is recovering from the brutal treatment he suffered at the hands of the Israeli terrorists. So, Ehab, why don't you start by telling us what happened at the moment that the Perseverance, the vessel on which you were traveling to Gaza, was intercepted by the Israeli genocide forces?
So, all times Palestine time, just to have the picture clear. Monday morning, the 18th, we started seeing Israeli Navy forces around us, and then one of the big ones came very close to us and made a couple of circles around us, but then it disappeared. We knew at that point that they were intercepting other boats, but probably for one reason or another, they decided to keep us till later. Just after sunset, we saw a huge drone hovering above us, and so that was about 8:45 p.m. and then a Zodiac came next to us. They boarded our boat. I'm going to go quickly through the timeline, and you can ask me for details if you want. So they boarded our boat. They took control of it. They commandeered it, and with the Zodiac running next to us to a prison container ship that acts as the prison. That took about an hour. Then they took us up onto that prison ship. Strip search, beatings, and then they put us in a prison area where about 150 people were confined to a space surrounded by 3 containers, and we had to sleep in those 3 containers. Tuesday, we woke up to more people being brought in from other boats. And they would attack us in that prison area every now and then and throw sound grenades and threaten us. In one of those stages, they asked me if I can translate from Arabic. So they used me as their translator. And then, so that happened twice on Tuesday. And by the end of Tuesday, we will have become 184 people in that prison area. They put us to a lot of stress that night. All that time, we had only water and bread. We were sleeping now much more difficult sleeping conditions. They had taken all our outer clothes, so we were only one layer, all of us. So it was cold or hot all the time. Wednesday morning, they put us through strenuous positions, again, asking me to help translate and help organize people in rows per the orders of numbers that they gave us. That's where an incident happened, and one of the soldiers attacked me and slit my left hand with a knife because I was helping people, giving them water and stuff, extending my role as translator. That took a couple of hours, putting us in strenuous positions, playing the Israeli national anthem again and again. Within a couple of hours, they had offboarded us all in the port of Ashdod. Again, put us in the same strenuous positions on our knees, face down. If you raise your head or speak, you get smacked. And then they took us to the immigration processing where they, that was now Wednesday around noon, where they accused us of entering Israel illegally. Of course, we all denied that. We said we were kidnapped. And those of us who accepted to sign that they are not objecting to being deported, put a note on the signature that we were not entering Israel illegally. We were kidnapped and brought here against our will. Then the strip searches and strenuous positions continued again, and they started deporting us to jail, handcuffed, handcuffed and leg cuffed. My wound in my hand was never treated till that point, till the guy who was putting the handcuffs on me refused to put the handcuffs on me with my hand bleeding because I was going to dirty his hands or his clothes. So I got very basic first aid for my hand like 6 hours later. We were put in prison transport trucks, about 15 or so each, very poor ventilation, driven for about 2 hours, maybe 3 hours. Maybe the delay was more for them processing the people that were transported before us rather than for the distance itself. As soon as we arrived in the Kidzot prison, which is in the very far south of Israel, close to the Egyptian border, the treatment continues, the strenuous positions, the stripping, the beating, running, forcing us to run around the prison with dogs barking at us, putting us in small rooms, 20 of us in a cell that takes 2 or 3 people, suffocating. So that all that continue in that hellish Wednesday till about 3 a.m. when they finally decided to show us a video about how Hamas are terrorists, and then let us go to sleep for a few hours. Thursday morning, they woke us up in a slightly more comfortable mood and less physical abuse. They just dragged us into buses again. Some of us were expecting that this means deportation. Some of us were confused. It was all a guess game. No watches, no information at all. The drive took a few hours till we found ourselves in the Ramon Air Base near Eilat, and we were put on 3 planes and taken to Turkey.
So let's get into some more detail about this horror show. At the moment when they intercepted the Perseverance, how far was the vessel from Gaza approximately?
180 nautical miles. Very far.
So
very close to Cyprus.
Right. Were you closer? Do you think you were closer to Cyprus than you were to Gaza at that point in time?
Oh, by far. We were very close to Cyprus.
Do you have any reason to believe, Ehab, that the Cypriot government was cooperating in any way with the Israelis in this illegal operation?
I had a Garmin InReach device that I pressed the SOS button on, and it sent signals. And Garmin people contacted my contacts, and they said that they know that there's an SOS signal, and they'll contact the Cypriots. And then they contacted my contacts again and said that the Cypriots know that this is a military Navy operation by Israel, and they will not be intervening.
Now, when you were put on this, we'll call it a prison ship, was this thing a cargo ship? Was it a military vessel, as far as you could tell? What was it exactly?
No, it was a cargo. It was a converted cargo ship. It was a converted cargo ship with 4 containers creating a prison area. 3 of them we sleep in, and the 4th one is the one they led us in through to the prison area. And this 4th one, while they're leading you through, that's where you get the worst beating, and where some people got like sexual abused and heavily physical abused. Most people got ribs either broken or badly bruised in that place. That's where they grabbed my glasses, for example, and smashed it. And they just punch you and kick you left, right, and center, depending on your luck, anywhere between 3 minutes and 10 minutes. And then they throw you out in the area between the 4 containers, which is the de facto prison. When you're in that prison area, there are 4 watch points on higher level, where there are 4 soldiers with machine guns pointing at you, with lasers pointing at you from all directions. And of course, during the night while you're sleeping, if you come out of the container, you get strobing lights, you get floodlights, you get laser pointers in your head. It's a horror show. It's really a punishment horror show for those 36 hours we spent on that boat. And of course, there is rubber bullets for some people. There are tasers for some people. So it's no one size fits all. It's you and your luck. If you raise your head up, or you resist, or you say anything, you get worse punishment. But everybody got horrible punishment anyway, even those who were totally compliant.
How many times were you yourself beaten during the time that you were in the custody of these criminals?
I was beaten in the beating container on my way in, real bad. I was the only one hit by a knife or stabbed in my hand from everybody on that prison ship. The strenuous positions on Wednesday morning before Eilat and in Eilat were horrible. Kind of punishment, extremely painful. Of course, lots of smacking and pushing, lots of sound grenades thrown at us without rhyme or reason. And all through that time, by the way, it was only water and loaves of bread. We did not have anything else to eat since Monday evening, and some people since Monday morning, till Thursday morning in the prison was the first time they gave us a sandwich, which really was nothing different than the loaf of bread that we've been eating before.
Mm-hmm. Did you also yourself witness women being beaten?
I witnessed women being roughed up. I did not witness what happens in that punishment container, because I guess that's where the worst things happen. And also 2 or 3 of the people out of the 184 that were on our prison boat, because there were 2 prison boats, were disappeared, and we only saw them after that in the port of Ashdod. So we don't know what happened to them on the boat.
What was the longest that you were required to remain without rest in the stress position?
I would say about 45 minutes on the boat and about maybe closer to an hour on port. But it was less strenuous on the port because it was in a tent. On the boat, it was under direct sunlight, and it was really, really horrible. Some of the toughest people, or the people I thought were tough, had started to faint, and that's one of the reasons when I got the chance, I gave them some water and poured water on their heads.
And that's why you were stabbed?
That is why I was stabbed.
Now, we've all seen this outrageous footage of Ben Gvir taunting some of the prisoners. Did you yourself ever see or come into contact with this war criminal?
No, that happened. Although in the montage, by the way, they montaged both our boat and the other group together in the short clips that we saw. But no, the group on my prison boat did not encounter Ben Gvir.
Okay. Now, throughout this whole ordeal, in fact, right up until the current time, Ehab, have you yourself had any communications? Have you been contacted by or visited by, throughout this entire deal, right up until the current time, any representative of the Canadian government?
I met the consul in Istanbul. It was a photo op when we were received in Istanbul, and the next morning in the hotel, I also met consular staff who I have to say were helpful in the fact that they helped me obtain glasses because, as I said, they had damaged my glasses as soon as I got on the prison boat.
But when you were in occupied Palestine and you were undergoing this torture, you were not in contact at any point with a Canadian government official?
No, and there was no sign whatsoever that Canada tried to intervene with Israel on anything. The situation when we were being processed for immigration, I looked for the lawyers because we're coordinating with the Adala law firm in occupied Palestine. And when I managed to reach the lawyer who was just hanging around there because they refused to give me a phone call, I asked her about Canadian consular service, and she said they may see you tomorrow morning. But of course, by tomorrow morning, it was the deportation already.
Mm-hmm. So, Ehab, I would like to show you a readout issued by the Office of the Prime Minister of Canada, which summarizes his conversation with Israeli President Isaac Herzog. And I've put the readout up here on the screen in its entirety. I shared this with you before we spoke today, but for the benefit of my audience, I just want to highlight some aspects of this readout. So this conversation apparently occurred yesterday. So this would have been well after the victims of this piracy and kidnapping were released. And the Prime Minister says in his readout that he reiterated to Herzog that the appalling treatment of civilians, and I'm quoting here, including Canadian citizens aboard the Gaza-bound flotilla, was unacceptable, and he called for an independent investigation. He strongly condemned comments made by Israel's Minister of Public Security, Ben Gvir, and emphasized that the protection of all civilians and respect for human dignity must be upheld everywhere at all times. The Prime Minister underscored Canada's unwavering support for a negotiated two-state solution. Then it says, during the conversation, Prime Minister Carney expressed Canada's support for Israel's security and its right to self-defense in accordance with international law. In doing so, he stressed the imperative of protecting civilians and the civilian and energy infrastructure. Then they go on. They apparently talked about the conflict in the Middle East. Presumably, he's referring there not only to the genocide in Gaza, but also the genocide in Lebanon and the criminal war of aggression on Iran. And finally, he concludes by stating that Carney discussed with Herzog the, quote, devastating resurgence of anti-Semitism around the world. And that's the end of it. So Herzog put out his own version of this conversation, his own readout, which I've shared with you, Ehab, and I'd like to share with our audience. And it says as follows. During the call on May 25th, the two leaders exchanged views on recent developments in the region. Both leaders agreed that Israel has the right to self-defense. President Herzog reiterated that Israel is acting against the threat of terror in accordance with international law and in coordination with regional and international partners. President Herzog expressed his condemnation of the pro-Hamas flotilla, which directly aimed to undermine UN Security Council Resolution 2803, including the disarmament of Hamas and the establishment of a new government in Gaza. I believe that is the UN Security Council resolution, the disgraceful resolution which approved Donald Trump's fraudulent peace plan for Gaza and the so-called peace board. And then Herzog says he stressed that while Israel is committed to the talks that lead to a future of peace with Lebanon, it cannot accept the repeated attacks on Israel by Hezbollah. The two leaders agreed that Iran is a regional and global threat and must never be allowed to obtain a nuclear weapon. No reference, of course, to the fact that Israel does have nuclear weapons and is not a signatory to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, whereas Iran is. And then Herzog says that the president expressed his deep alarm at the mounting levels of anti-Semitic violence in Canada. And you'll notice there's a long paragraph here, the longest of the entire statement, is not about the civilians that Israel is mass murdering in Palestine and outside of Palestine, but rather to this alleged, stratospheric levels of anti-Semitism in Canada. And finally, he says the two leaders also discussed the current challenges in the Israel-Canada bilateral relationship, which historically has been so beneficial to both peoples, and the importance of increasing engagement, including the fields of trade, technology, blah, blah, blah. So, sorry for the long-winded review of these two statements, but I thought the details are important. What's apparent to me from these statements, two things stand out for me, Ehab, and I'd like your reaction to this. Nowhere in Carney's statement is there any indication that Canada is going to impose consequences on Israel for these crimes, including the torture, the assault, the kidnapping of Canadian citizens such as you. There's no talk about sanctions or any other form of penalty. And even when Carney in his statement refers to an independent investigation, he doesn't give any information about the parties who should be carrying out that investigation. Presumably, as per prior Canadian practice, he would be content with Israel investigating itself, as if that could possibly be an independent investigation. But we just don't know, because he doesn't say anything. He doesn't refer to the UN investigating, the ICC, nothing like that. And then on the side of the Israeli president, I did not see in that statement the slightest bit of regret for anything that was done by the Israeli government to Canadian citizens, including yourself. In fact, all he did was justify it and repeat lies, such as, the flotilla participants are supporters of Hamas and are somehow engaged in or promoting terrorism. Now, maybe I missed something in there, Ehab, but I'm interested. Do you agree with my reading of these statements? And what is overall your reaction to these statements?
Thank you, Dimitri. First, putting those two statements together and trying to get a picture from them together, you get to conclusion right away as if this is just a casual chat between the two, and it has nothing to do really with the issue at hand. I don't think if our prime minister had the intention by this call to discuss the issue, I think he was not allowed to discuss the issue. And the issue, of course, is what happened to Canadian citizens and how could another country, so-called really country, because the way it was acting was more like a band of pirates, really, does that to citizens of Canada, among 40 some other countries. It didn't come through as there is anything serious about that. As you said, from Herzog's side, he was justifying a 20-some year old blockade, or a 20-year-old blockade, by a resolution that happened a few months ago. And of course, allegations that are not proven, and we know that they are all false. And we're back to our prime minister and our country that continues to, in so many cases, deal with Israel as if Israel is a liberal democracy, as if Israel is a really country that respects human rights and respects itself as much as possible. We know that all countries in the world have their shortcomings, but Israel is a pariah state. Israel shouldn't be in that league at all. And when are we going to start to deal with Israel that way? What are we waiting for? Again, this is a very casual, friendly exchange between the two. They agree on more things by far than they disagree about. They don't question at all, what does Israel defending itself mean in any way? Is that a free rein to do anything to anybody in the world anyway? Is that a carte blanche to harm, kidnap, torture people? It is really a sad situation. And just in the past few hours, both the Canadian Boat to Gaza Freedom Flotilla Coalition and the Sumud Flotilla Canada, we addressed, us and our families and the two organizations, addressed the Prime Minister directly, sent him a letter asking to meet with him to discuss these matters in a real, serious, honest way, and to understand why and when is Canada going to stop doing that with Israel.
Mm-hmm. And I put up on the screen the first page of that 7-page letter. Please do let us know, Ehab, if you receive any response. I mean, we'd like to know what happens to this letter, whether or not you receive a response, and to report it to our audience. The last thing I want to ask you, Ehab, is this. At the time that these criminals kidnapped you and your comrades on the high seas, Carney put out a statement pointing out, this would have been right after Ben-Gvir aired that atrocious video of him taunting people who were being tormented. And he pointed out, Carney, in the statement at that moment, that's the first time he referred to what Israel was doing as appalling, that the Canadian government has sanctioned Ben-Gvir. However, the Canadian government has not sanctioned any military officials in Israel. It hasn't sanctioned Netanyahu or Gallant, even though they have been indicted by the ICC. It hasn't sanctioned any military industrial corporations, for example, Elbit Systems or Israel Aerospace Industries. It continues to accord trade benefits to Israel under the Canada-Israel Free Trade Agreement, and on and on and on. And they continue to buy and sell weapons from Israel and to Israel. So how do you respond to the argument that, well, the Canadian government has sanctioned Ben-Gvir?
First, I mean, even that, I would really like to know what that entails exactly, sanctioning Ben-Gvir, because some statements are made for public consumption, and we don't know what that means. But regardless, I do agree with you again, 100%. What is the real problem here is that we say some words, we do some generalities, but we continue to say that Israel is our friends and Israel's values are Canada's values. And like the previous prime minister said, I am a Zionist. I mean, these things should end, and we really demand that we see real sanctions on Israel, real actions that affect the bilateral relationships between us and Israel in so many ways, in diplomacy, in trade, in cultural exchange, in educational exchange, in arms exchange. This is what we need to see. And we want to know what exactly is being done, not floating words that we cannot measure. It's gone too long, too far. And particularly after the genocide in Gaza, we can't still continue with this. And let me say something at the end that I can't end without saying, I understand that maybe for a lot of the Canadian public and Canadian government, the issue now is how these Canadians were treated. And maybe that is more effective in touching their minds, their hearts. But on the other hand, I really hope that Canadians, including people and government, see the problem where the real problem is, which is what's been happening to the Palestinians for 78 years. And I couldn't stop thinking about that while I was in these stressful, torturous positions, is that no matter what happens, I know one way or the other that this for me is going to end. May end with some lifelong physical consequence, but it's going to end. Palestinians live their life knowing that there is no end to this. And why is that? Because we as a world have failed them. And that's not acceptable.
Thank you, comrade, for your service and your courage and sacrifice. And I cannot express enough not only my own gratitude for what you and the others have attempted to do to advance the cause of Palestinian freedom, but I think I speak on behalf of our entire audience when I express gratitude for your service. Thank you.